Guys, welcome back to another airsoft video. In this video I thought we'd take a look at my Tokyo Marui MWS Mark 18 and how I've got it set up for playing night vision games, and just some of the external mods that I've added to this gun. So starting off, I've had this gun for about a year now. With COVID, I haven't really got a chance to go play games, unfortunately. But I have put a couple thousand rounds through it, just plinking, and actually going through to our local club has a little target shooting night where they have like these pop-up targets. So use that this gun there, and it's been working perfectly so far. And if you want, you can take a look at that short I put on my channel of me plinking some targets. So previously I had a Vipertech Mark 18, which was based off the WA system, so same as the Inokatsus and the GHKs. But I was just never really happy with the way the hop-up was adjusted, and the gas efficiency and rate of fire on those guns are just leave something to be desired. I always felt like I was being outshot by rate of fire for the AEG guys, which is perfectly true. And the range on those systems like the GHK and the Vipertechs are incredible. I actually don't think the MWS has as good of a range out of the box as those guns do. But the rate of fire and the gas efficiency on the MWS is much better, even in the cold weather, sorry. Because I'm up here in Canada, it gets fucking cold. So I kind of wanted something that would at least perform decently in the cold weather. So this gun is all short stroked out and everything to be able to perform super quick and snappy in the summer, and then decently as well in the wintertime. At least that's the idea. So I guess starting off with internal upgrades, at the front there, I've got a PDI 6.03 250 millimeter barrel, as well as a PDI W-hold 70-degree bucking and a Laylax Strike Arm. When I first got this thing, the accuracy was not very good, I gotta admit. At even 10 meters, the grouping was about the size of plate. This gun was used when I bought it, so I don't know, maybe something was fucked up with the bucking, or I don't know how many thousands rounds the previous owner put through it. So maybe the bucking was gone, or the barrel, something was fucked up with it. But it was also struggling to lift the heavier BBs, I noticed. So I swapped it out, and everything works great with .30s now. Shoots like a laser beam out to 70 meters, 60, 70 meters. 70 is kind of pushing it, but 60, it works fine. Hits a man-sized target, so I'm pretty happy with that. What else? Internally, I've got the G&P Roller Bolt as well, extension on the bolt just to kind of keep it centered, and I'm using an Angry Gun buffer tube. So people were saying on the Discord, it's probably a good idea if you swap out from the stock buffer tube to get the G&P the G&P roller bolt, just to kind of make sure your system's running optimally and there's no tilt in the bolt when it goes through into that receiver extension. I should mention, and I'll show you that guys later too as well, if you do change out the buffer tube on your MWS, you have to put spacers at the end of your buffer tube, or your bolt will actually impact the top of your lower receiver, and eventually it'll just destroy itself. Your lower receiver will either crack or your bolt will explode, basically. So you have to short stroke the gun. It's just, I guess, a little quirk of the MWS design, but I guess it should be also something everyone's aware of, because I didn't know about that, and I only noticed that when I opened my gun one day, and I said, that there's a dent in my lower receiver. I didn't notice that, and I hopped on the Discord and noticed that, that's a common problem. So I'll also put a link in the Discord in the description below, and it's a great resource for anyone who's new to the MWS system. I think if you always have any questions, the people there are always happy to help. And I'm sure actually if you just search, even though Discord search is kind of shitty, people probably have asked that same question that you probably have, and you can find an answer. At least that was what it was like for me. So those are the internal upgrades I've put in, just very minimal. The gun shoots like a laser and it's quick and snappy. That's all I'm really worried about. So we'll just jump in here and go, as Flannel Daddy says, tip to butt, and take a look at some of the external mods I've put on this gun. So starting at the tip here, I've got the Dytac RC2 Surefire Mock Suppressor that I've kind of modified to add some fake carbon to the muzzle here, just for that extra LARP and realism. So how I did that was using some MIG model weathering pigment. It's the engine carbon, I believe, weathering pigment. If you look that up on Google, I'm sure you can find a bunch of different brands. But basically all it is it's like makeup powder, and you just get a brush and then you dot it all around, or you'll push it in to here or wherever you want it, and then all you'll do is then use a matte varnish sealer to seal it in place. And that's all I did, and I think it turned out pretty well, and kind of gives a cool effect to the gun, that extra set of realism. So next we can take a look at my night vision modules here. On the front I've got a Replica Surefire M600v with working white and IR, and you can pick these up on eBay. I think it was like 60 bucks. The throw on the white is pretty good. It's super fucking bright. But the IR, it doesn't have good throw or depth to the illumination. It's more of a wide flood spotlight. So in terms of airsoft use in dense forests, or when you need to use IR, it's pretty good for airsoft distances, maybe up to, I'd say 60 meters, 60, 70 meters, but it doesn't have that intense beam or like circle beam that you would get out of like a LA5 or D-Ball A2, or even probably the real M600v. But for airsoft engagement distances, it's worked really well for me. And when you turn it on, it kind of illuminates everything in your whole FOV, which is pretty cool. I guess it could be a little better, especially if you're trying to PID past 100 meters. So maybe if you're at something like a sim like Milspec West, where you need to, PID a force that's pretty far away, this probably isn't going to do very well. But for your, close-in engagements like that are airsoft distances, I think it works well enough. So moving on to the laser, this is a Holosun LS117IR, so the IR version. It doesn't have a manual fire button. So if I had to buy this again, you can get a version that's just the IR laser, no visible, that has a manual fire button. And I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but when I bought this laser, I didn't know that version existed. If I had to do it again, I totally would buy the one with a manual fire button version, just in case your switch fails. Then you have a backup, or if you don't want to use a switch. So moving back, I've got the Unity Taps Sync V2, and this is the version where the flashlight and laser are in the back button and the laser is the front. So I have this slaved up to my IR laser for the front button, and then the white light or IR flood and laser to the back. So the way I can use that is I can have IR flood and IR laser, or if I want, if it's bright enough, I can just change this to white light and then just have white light on the back. It doesn't matter if it fires the laser at that point if I'm going white light. So if I want to be kind of covert or not overt, I can have the IR flood and IR laser for the back. I guess the only downside of that is, you don't really know when you need to go white light, or it could be very sudden. So I have to switch this. Let's say I'm running on the IR. I'll have to like manually switch this to the white light. So it's kind of a downfall of having a smaller unit. This is me trying to do it on a budget instead of buying something like a D-Ball I2 or D-Ball A2 or an LA5 that has the integrated illuminator on the lamp itself. So I can do, IR spotlight and laser on one unit and then always have a white light. I think that's generally what people recommend. But this setup is pretty lightweight, and the caveat is you might not have white light, or I might not have white light when quickly or when I need to. So I haven't run this full setup at a night game just yet, just blinking in the backyard. So I don't really know if I'll ever be in a situation where I need to switch to white light quickly, or if I can just leave white light on and then just use, just the laser. So we'll see how this works out. It's all up to test. And I do one thing I do like about it is how lightweight and compact it is. So I think it's pretty cool that way. All right, moving back here. I should mention that this is a Angry Gun BCM MCMR 10 rail, and I've got a Madbull 1-inch extension on my outer barrel, because the original barrel that comes with the Mark 18 MWS I think is 10.3 inches. So if you put your flash hider on the original barrel, like, you can't put a suppressor on it, so you need that barrel extension to make it 11.5. So you can add a mock suppressor if you like. But the Angry Gun rail is perfect. There's no wobble, so long as you torque the cross bolts to the correct spec. And you can look that up on BCM's website. You can just use the same spec as the real steel BCM, and that works perfectly fine. I've got just the BCM Vertical Grip there. I think that works good because it allows me to get more leverage on this back button when I need to use it. Before, I was using kind of the Arasaka mini stop, and I was finding when I needed to use this back button, I wasn't able to shift my hand and get enough leverage with my bottom fingers, would just kind of be floating in space, so that was not good. So trying that out. Back here, I've got the OG Primary Arms micro dot on a Scalarworks 1.93 mount, and this is the first, or one of the first, red dots that Primary Arms sold before Holosun kind of became super popular, and I've had it for like super long time now. I feel like 6 years now, maybe more. And it's worked fine for me. It does have a little bit of ghosting on it now. At the 3 o'clock position, there's a little bit of flare, but in highlight daylight environment, it's not noticeable. And it works fine actually for passive aiming on brightness setting 1. So that's all I kind of really care about. No backup irons, because I've got 2 methods of aiming, so it's fine, and it's just airsoft. What else do I have on here? I've got the Magpul K2 Grip. First time trying that out. Really like it. Change that out on all my guns too. On the back here, I've got a Gaurder extended latch. I don't like the Radiant style grip latches with both on the side that are kind of big. I always find that kind of gets caught on gear and stuff, so custom made this Gaurder latch to fit the Marui. And how you do that is the Marui charging handle if anyone's ever disassembled a charging handle in real life, they'll know that this spring inside the charging handle, there's a channel that goes all the way the length of the charging handle. In the Marui, there's no channel that goes all the length of the charging handle. Basically, the spring is this long, so it stops here. Whereas on a real charging handle, it goes all the way back here. So what you need to do in order to use any real steel latch is you have to cut this spring, the original spring that comes down, by like 3/4. If you don't cut it, there's way too much compression on the spring and you can't open the latch far enough to clear the receiver. So, it hasn't broken on me yet, but doing that mod was a little bit jank. So I'm hoping it will kind of last the test of time. And to be honest, it's kind of a weird, it feels like a lazy step that Marui did to kind of do that with a charging handle. And I noticed there's like some other things on the MWS that just like aren't fully real spec that kind of pissed me off. So yeah, it's just kind of weird. I don't know why they just wouldn't drill out. I guess you could also do that. You could drill out the charging handle so the spring sits in further. But to be honest, this is probably made out of like cheap cast aluminum or like zinc, so it's probably not a good idea. And you can't use like a real steel charging handle on the MWS system, unfortunately, because it's like short. The charging handle is like that big. It's not like that big, so it's just kind of weird. Another weird thing about the MWS is the trigger guard. I can't remember now. It's either the front or the rear shape of the receiver has like an indent, so you can't use a real steel trigger guard on it. So you have to use the MWS specific trigger guard. Kind of weird. This is an Angry Gun metal one. It's kind of like replicates the Magpul one, I guess. Again, another weird thing about the MWS is the extension plates. This is a real Noveske QD extension plate. But the thing is, the lower receiver, that indent that you see this QD plate goes into, if you're familiar with a QD end plate, it has like a kind of positive side male indentation that goes into the receiver. And on the Marui lower receiver, that female side of the indentation isn't the same spec as the real steel QD plate. It's like a D-shaped instead of like a circular shaped. So what you have to do specifically for this Noveske style QD end plate is you have to rasp the top of the circle for the male indentation on the inside until it fits. So a little annoying. And I know that Angry Gun actually makes like a replica of this Noveske QD end plate. So honestly, that's what I would do if I had to do this again instead of like mangling a real QD end plate to fit. But I had one laying around and I didn't want to buy the Angry one, so I decided to use that. Finally, on the back here, I've got the Angry Gun Milspec extension with the LMT SOPMOD stock, and it works perfectly fine with the real steel stock. In fact, the Angry Gun is definitely Milspec in size, and there's like no wobble or anything, so that works out pretty well. So yeah, that's my MWS setup in a nutshell. Oh, I should mention the mags I'm using are Ace1Arms /SAA PMAGs, and on all of them I've replaced the routes with Gaurder routes and the valves with the PTS MEC flux valves, I think, for MWS. But ideally, you want to replace with the stock MWS valves for best performance. But honestly, they work pretty close to stock now, or the stock MWS mags, because before, if you don't replace those two pieces on the mags, they the rate of fire is pretty slow, and they let off quite a bit of gas, so that's not good. But replacing those two parts works out pretty well. So yeah, that's my little night vision MWS setup, 11.5 BCM kind of build. And I hope you guys like it. Let me know if you have any questions, and make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll make sure to get back to you in the comments. Thanks, guys. Bye. Sorry, guys. One thing I forgot to show you was short stroking the gun and the damage that can happen if you don't do that. But if you see this indentation here, that's what happens if you don't short stroke the gun, if you replace the receiver extension. Basically what happens is this part of the bolt, do you see where that blue marking is, that screw, impacts the lower receiver there. And luckily my indentation there isn't too bad, but if you don't monitor that and if you didn't know about it, it can get real bad to the point where it can split your receiver in half. So that would not be good. One extra thing I actually forgot to mention too was I've got the G&P weighted buffer as well in this gun. And what that is just a buffer tube that has like weights and some plastic spacers you can put in. And the recommended way to have those weights and spacer setup is weight, spacer, weight, I believe. And with actually you want some movement in the what is it called? The buffer weight. So when you shake it, it sounds like a little rattly. And what that does is, if it's a little rattly, it actually stops the bolt from bouncing when it goes into battery. Some weird physics there, but basically helps you with efficiency and rate of fire, because it's just going straight in and stopping instead of going straight in and like kind of bouncing as it kind of goes back into battery. So thanks guys for watching. I'll actually put some shooting videos here. All right, bye.